Hello and welcome to my review of the Legion Praetor for Death Guard for Warhammer the Horus Heresy from Forge World. Now this resin miniature will cost you £26.50, which is about right for these resin Praetor minis. Of course you could build your own, I guess, using parts from all the other plastic kits, but if you wanted to get a Praetor that was pretty special, lots of Death Guard iconography and things, then this is a great choice, and this is a fantastic mini as well. We'll have a look at the detail of this Praetor. We'll go through the spare parts, of which there is only one, I think. Then we'll go through some size comparisons with the Terminator Praetor and a few other miniatures. I can't unfortunately do any size comparisons with the Death Shroud or the Grave Wardens or Mortarion or anything like that, because they're not, or Typhon even, because they're not built yet, unfortunately. I just wanted to get these reviews out as quick as possible. Well, you know, as close to their release as I could. The rest of the Death Guard unboxings and reviews will be later next year. So let's have a look at this miniature up close. I think it's fantastic looking mini. I like the helmet that they've gone for. I like this big sweeping shoulder pauldron with this cloak. The cloak is, you know, it's not an Emperor's Children. It's not a Blood Angels. It doesn't need to have like lots of iconography and things. It's not ornate. It just does the job as being like a cloak to set him apart from other Space Marines. You know, if you compare his cloak to some of the other Praetors, especially the Emperor's Children and things, and that's the feeling I get with Death Guard, is that they've got these weapons and armor and things, and they just carry out a function. It's definitely function over form for Death Guard. But as you can see, you've got some cabling and tubes from the chest plate. You've got these greaves. To me it looks like iron armor Mark III, but it could actually be Crusade armor. Yeah, it possibly is iron armor though. I like the chainmail, you know, from the power armor. I'm not sure if it's giving any more protection, but I really like these shared aesthetics with this model and the 40k range, in that you could probably use him in 40k as like an older, like Death Guard Space Marine. Yes, he doesn't have the mutations and things. I mean, you don't know what's going on in that armor, under that armor, but that's the one thing I very much like with you know, some of the models from the Death Guard, with some of the models from the Horus Heresy range from Forge World. You've got 3 skulls. One even has the 14 symbol there. You've got this nice scythe. Again, Forge World do sell their scythes separately for about £15 or so you could equip one of your Mark IIIs with a scythe and call it a day. It's got this weapon. Now, I always thought it was like a combi grav or something, but it's actually a flamer. It's yeah, there's like a combi flamer hidden under there, and it sort of makes sense, you know, because they have the chem flamers and things. But there you go. That's a close-up of the Praetor. Now we can have a look at that spare part, which is just an alternative head right here. So very Death Guard looking. It's got this mask on with some cabling on the top of his head, and some tubes, some kind of filter there, and then tubes on the other side. Quite ironic, isn't it? Yeah, so and that just goes, you know, hand in hand with Death Guard's sort of resilience and taking part in campaigns that are you know, on really horrific death worlds and things. But yeah, that's the optional head. You might want to go for that instead of this pickle helmet type head. So, size comparisons. Well, I do have the Death Guard Praetor in Cataphracti armor right here, and he is an absolute beast. Weapon-wise, I know I really like the scythe, but this Praetor's axe is way bigger than the Praetor himself. It's probably actually taller than the Cataphracti Praetor. The scythe, a little bit, but the axe, very much so. So if you like big axes, this is probably like a dual-handed axe, then you might want to take the Praetor in Cataphractii armour. And it's a tough one because Death Guard are very iconic in their Cataphractii Terminator plate, but yet they're also iconic in the Mark III. I'm so pleased that Forge World kept with the Mark III, Mark II aesthetic for Death Guard for this Praetor, because they so easily could have made him a Mark VI Praetor like they did with the Emperor's Children. And I think if you follow the marks of armour that they've used for their Praetors, that's a good starting block for kitting out the rest of your army in said armour. Now, if we look at a size difference, the Terminator is a bit bigger. He is a big boy. He's not quite as big as the Imperial Fist Praetor in Terminator armour, but he's very close, very close, one of the biggest Praetors. So that's where he stands next to the Terminator. I can't really show you him next to Mortarion or any of those other cool miniatures, but I will be bringing these two in, you know, Mortarion and the Grave Wardens and things, size comparison videos. So what I can do though is I can compare him to an Interemptor from Dark Angels. He's a fair bit chunkier. This is the size of the Mark IIIs are going to be next to your Praetor. I have measured the Interemptors as exactly the same size. So he's going to stand head and shoulders above just the normal Mark III. So if you were, you know, concerned that he's not going to stand out, or he's just going to be a Mark III with a scythe, don't be. He's going to, you know, have a big presence there, and even with Cataphractii Terminators, well, the plastic ones at least, he is taller than them too. So if you've got some Cataphractii, they're going to look a bit strange next to him. Again, I'd love to show you him compared to the Grave Wardens and stuff, but yeah, with time constraints I can't. Now I have a few more Praetors to compare this Death Guard one with. Most notably is the Dark Angels Praetor, which looks tiny. Yes, he's probably fast and, you know, agile and things and all the rest of the good stuff, which definitely makes the difference, even with power armor. If you're going up against, you know, Titanic Greatswords or Calibanite blades or power swords even, you know, speed is definitely the king when it comes to cleaving power armor, unless they've got an iron halo. But yeah, if we can just see the difference in size here, they're both, I'd say, sort of in the same armor, but the sizes are definitely different. The Dark Angels, which is quite a newer miniature, is a fair bit smaller. Yes, the Death Guard is in a, you know, bigger, taller pose, but I just wanted to make that point that this is like a small Praetor in the grand scheme of things. Other Praetors that we have, we've got, of course, the Emperor's Children. We've got Jeff Bezos himself making an appearance. Thank you, Jeff, for your time out and a good decision with the Warhammer 40k collab with Henry. Then you've got the Ultramarines, and I think that's it. Oh no, we're missing the coolest one of them all, the Word Bearers one right here. So we've got a whole family of Praetors at the moment. Size wise, it's a tricky one. I'd probably say the Emperor's Children is the second largest after the Death Guard. Praetors are pretty much chapter masters. They're in charge of 1,000 Space Marines or so. They have this artificer armor, which is bespoke to them. In plastic, they're very similar, but in resin, this Mark III is actually taller. And I say Mark III, it shares this aesthetics. I've just made a big point about it being artificer armor. But that's where he stands. This Death Guard one is the biggest Praetor that they do, as you know, standard Praetor. Even the Sons of Horus is a very similar height, but it's on this big scenic base. If we lower him a little bit, he's a little bit smaller than the Death Guard one. The Word Bearers one, I think, is probably one of the best appropriately sized miniatures in the Forge World range. for Space Marines. He's got his knees bent a little bit, aiming forward, but if he was in the same pose, he'd be similar sort of height. You've also got the Imperial Fists Praetor right here, bit more of an action pose, so he's a bit lower. And then you've got the Ultramarines Praetor, which is a little bit smaller as well. That just goes to show you, with the rest of the collection of these Praetors, that this is a big Praetor. So if that was one of the selling points, if you wanted a big Praetor and you weren't too sure about the size of this one, how he measures up to the others in the range, then I hope that's helped. If we just compare him to some 40k miniatures, oops. So we've got a Primaris and a normal Space Marine. So normal Space Marine is going to be taller, and then a Primaris is just a little bit taller, and then Slime Marbo is barely up to the chest plate, the Gorget. Okay, so this is my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for this Death Guard Praetor. You'll find him in your Liber Hereticus, the Traitor Legiones Astartes army book. So because he is just a Praetor, he's not a named character or anything, you'll find him in the front of the Traitor book, under the HQ section, as the very first unit option. There's nothing stopping you from picking him as a Centurion if you really want. If you want a kind of a half price Praetor with a little worse stat line. But speaking of which, the Legion Praetor, its movement of 7 inches, which is very, very fast for a Death Guard. Weapon skill 6, ballistic skill 5, strength 4, toughness 4, 3 wounds, initiative 5, 4 attacks, leadership 10, and a save of 2+. He's one Legion Praetor as an infantry character. It's got a bolt pistol, chainsword, artificer armor, iron halo, frag grenades, crack grenades. Special rules are Legiones Astartes, Master of the Legion, independent character, and relentless. Of course, his war gear is a bolt pistol, but as you can see, he's got a combi weapon. Now, if you didn't know what combi weapons are, they come in 2 different types. There's a Magna and a Minor. This is a minor combi weapon, which includes a flamer, Volkite charger, or grenade launcher. I think I probably thought it was a grenade launcher, but either way, he's got a minor combi weapon, which is an additional 5 points. He will cost you 120 points, but then 5 points for the minor combi weapon. You can take many options, such as Architect pistols, Charnable weapons, Thunderhammers, Paragon blades, Lightning claws, combat shields, melter bombs, jump packs, Spatha combat bikes, scimitar jet bikes. He's got the Master of the Legion rule, which gives you the rights of war, the few and the proud. You can only include one of these per 1,000 points, kind of makes sense. And retinue, you can get a Legion command squad or Legion Cataphracti or Legion Tartarus squad as part of the same force organisation. It's a way of getting more beefed up models for one unit rather than having to use up your elite. Now, in terms of warlord traits, you've got the Reaper's Visage, where enemy units within 12 inches of him must reduce their leadership of all models by -2 when taking leadership tests. Witch Hunter gives him a +1 to his toughness and weapon skill when locked in combat with any unit that includes at least 1 Psyker subunit. That's pretty good. They also get 6+ invulnerable save against hits inflicted by a psychic weapon. So if you're going up against Psykers, that could be a decent thing to pick. The Blood of Barbarous hits with rending, murder strike, poisoned, or fleshbane allocated to him. Only gain the benefit of those on a d6 roll of a 6 instead of the value listed. So if you're going up against, I don't know, Dark Angels, for instance, with their murderous strike weapons and things, they're only getting those instant death weapon effects on a 6 instead of the 4+, which is a big buff. You've got Death Guard Rights of War. You've got the Reaping, where veteran squads can be taken as troop choices, heavy supports can be taken as non-compulsory troop choices, and any model taken in that detachment can take rad grenades for 10 points each. You've got the Creeping Death, they automatically pass any dangerous terrain tests. Models in the deployment zone of a detachment gain the 6+ shrouded rule, and the entire deployment zone of a detachment using this right of war counts as difficult terrain. So, you know, if anybody's trying to get in your deployment zone for whatever reason, it's difficult and dangerous terrain. All zones of area terrain on the battlefield also count as dangerous terrain. I think it's another, like woodlands and things, it's another thing that people can overlook. And then Grave Warden Terminator squads can be taken as non-compulsory troops. That's pretty awesome too. Let's not forget that the Death Guard have a rule called Remorseless, where they ignore any modifiers and restrictions on moving during the movement phase, such as activating a jump pack, disembarking or deploying via deep strike. So that's pretty awesome too. As long as they don't use any other alternative form of movement, they count as stationary when making shooting attacks. So that's fantastic if you're going around moving with, you know, all your las cannons or your Volkite, I think they're heavy, or your plasma even. So I'm just highlighting the Death Guard Legion rules, because it might affect, you know, whether you take this Praetor or not, and his role in your army. Now, the one thing he is equipped with though is this minor combi weapon, the combi flamer. It's part of the armory of the Death Guard to have alchem munitions, where toxic compounds are replaced instead of Promethean gel. Kind of like, if anybody remembers Command and Conquer, you've got the flame tank and then you've got the chem flame tank. It's kind of like that. That's the image I get in my head of these releasing like green flames. I'll probably say Interemptor's releasing blue flames because it's like plasma, but and probably with some sparkle effects. But these definitely like green flamers just flaming everywhere with chemicals. And this Alchem Combi Flamer, it's a template, strength 4, AP 5, assault 1, fleshbane, gets hot. So yeah, it's a shame it gets hot. It is a template weapon, and it does have the fleshbane special rule, which is great. Another thing you can equip the Praetor with, as well, any Death Guard characters really, such as your sergeants and things, you can give them a power scythe. It replaces the power weapon for a power scythe. Now that gives them a +2 strength, so that'd be a strength 6, AP 3, which is decent for scything about Space Marines, but not so good against you know, models with 2+ save. It's a melee weapon, of course. It's a rending 6+, which is fantastic. It's two-handed and it's reaping blow. So although not quite as up to scratch as the Charnable blades or even the Titanic greatswords of the Dark Angels, still a pretty decent loadout for a Praetor. But what do you guys think of both the miniature and the rules for Death Guard? Why not subscribe and stay tuned to the channel for more Horus, Heresy and Death Guard content. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. Death to the False Emperor.